Hello everyone and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to talk about how to set up your buffs for getting more trash loot in PvE. Now, the reason why this was brought up is because we all know the Heidel Ball is right around the corner. A lot of people are returning to the game. Some people might be starting the game. So I think this is going to be helpful for everyone to just learn what to use and how to effectively get it. So as we all know, buffing in this game is important. There's also a lot of stupid stuff that we have to do to manage our rotation and how we can make it better. But with that said, let's talk about it. And hopefully, you guys improve all your trash loot as well. So with that said, what we're going to be talking about is the item collection gauge, which is essentially how much loot you can get. This goes up to 300% on non-Arsha and 350, or I believe 350 to 400, depending on if you're castle owner or on Arsha, which is the PvP server essentially. So let's start off with the buffs, because this is probably the most important thing, whether you're on a PvP server or not. As we all know, gearing up and using all the buffs is kind of important. So I'm going to show you how to get all of them and how to make it easier. So whether you have a fairy or not using the auto potions, it's probably a good idea to get one. But if you don't have it, I'll just show you what I use anyway. I know not everyone has a full family inventory. You kind of have to pay for this one, but even if you don't and you only have like the 4 slots it gives you for free, what I would put in here is the infinite potions, because you could set that with the fairy. That is kind of mandatory these days. And I guess loot scrolls, because you could use them on all your other characters. But essentially, the infinite potions, maybe loot scroll, and anything else. But aside from that, first thing we do, food buff. I use 2 of them for PvEing. For most people, a simple cron meal will be the best thing, just because it gives extra AP against monsters, and then all the other stats that are important. Now, when should you use exquisite cron meal? This is more for PvP, but it's not like you can't use it in PvE. So when your AP is overcapped, and how this one, the simple cron meal, gives 30 extra AP against monsters. If you go to, I don't know, let's pick a spot, for example. You see how this is the recommended AP and the restricted? It goes diminishing returns past it. So what you do is when you are higher, when you have more AP than, the spot you're grinding at, this extra AP against monsters kind of falls off a little bit. And so what you would want is more special attack damage, which is like back, crit, air, all down attack, those kind of things. So you want more of that and a little bit less of the AP if you're way overcapped. That's when you use exquisite. So basically, TLDR, if your number is bigger than this green number, then you probably use exquisite. If it's not, or barely meeting the restricted, then simple is probably better. So either way, it's up to you. They're both good, but it's really situational. And this one gives a little bit more HP than this one, so I guess depending on where you're grinding, could be safer. All right, the next thing we want to talk about is the villa buff. Now, there's 2 ways of getting this one, and one would be the traditional way of going to the villa, keeping an alt there, using a maid to get the scroll thingy. I think it's just like 10 mil, which back in the day before the tent buff came out, this is what we had to do. But now you just keep a character at a villa and then maid transport it back to your main and then there and back. Everyone else with the tent, this is why the tent is, I would say, kind of mandatory these days. Whether you get the paid or free one, I have a video of that. I'll leave a link in the description of how to get the non-real money version. What you would do is go to your villa scroll and then just buy it. So once again, if you're over AP capped, it's probably better. Well, most of the time you use the body enhancement one just straight up across the board, no matter where you grind. However, if you're grinding a spot where you're going for, like actual XP or something, you could use this, but it's lower on the priority. So like if you're actually trying to level, use this one, but everyone else, like 99% of the time, you use body enhancement, and you can buy it from the tent. So we're gonna keep this up because we're gonna talk about another buff in a second. The next thing we want to do is the 2 church buffs. Now one way you could do it is you could go to the shop here and essentially buy these church buffs. I'll explain that in a second. So this Blessing of War and then Blessing of Protection, they last for 2 hours. They give you all AP, more damage always good, more accuracy, and then damage reduction in HP. That's good. So keep in mind, if you can try to avoid buying it from the tent, it's a little bit better, but ultimately, is it a big deal? No. The reason why is because they are 3.5 mil each from the tent, and then if you buy it directly from the church, they are 3 mil each. Is it a big deal? No. 1 mil these days in 2025 is literally irrelevant, but for the sake of saving silver, just 1 mil is 1 mil, I guess. You buy it directly from the church, and you save 1 mil. So just remember to do it while you're in town before you go grinding, and that's about it. If you forget, it's not a big deal. The next thing I want to talk about is the statue things that we talked about. So you know the house furnishings that we use. They added something recently. It's called the Blessing of Mystic Beasts, and so are these worth it in terms of the same stats for the amount of silver you're spending? No, it's not worth it. It's one of those things you buy if you forget to use it in town. So this is what you do. You buy these and they're consumables essentially. And you basically those house furnishings, but portable. Here's what you do instead. I'll explain the cost value and why they're not good in a second. But let me show you what the effects are. So, you know these like statue things you get from doing world bosses and all this stuff, 15 AP plus another random stat, whichever one is relevant to you. So essentially the main goal is to get 15 AP from this stat buff right here, right? Let's talk about this one. So this one's the only one that really matters, let's be honest. These other 4 are very specific uses, and even then AP is probably still better. So these are 37 mil. We'll round it down for the future. Let's say 30 mil for 1 hour for 15 AP. Is that good? Absolutely. But the thing is, there are other options that you can use, and let me show you where it is. Furniture, and is it decoration? Okay. So there are other things you could use over here. So for example, this one, it is 360, 15 AP for 3 hours, and then it has 10 uses. So you know how we were talking about the scroll having 60 minutes, one-time use, 30. Right now it's at 37. So essentially, you're getting 10 hours for 370 mil. If you use this in town, you get 3 hours and 10 uses, so 30 hours for essentially the same price. You literally triple the value by just doing this in town instead of being lazy and then buying one of those scrolls. So essentially, you're paying the same price for triple the value. So just buy one of these, place it into your house, and then do that. Otherwise, what most people do is just go to the bosses and then get the ones that give the bonus stat. I personally just buy the cheapest one if I were you. So these are a little bit more expensive and a little bit less value, but they give 1 extra stat, which I think is better more for the PvP side of things. So like if you are PvPing, probably the ignore all resist or all resist bonus, depending on what you're doing. Stamina, a little bit less relevant. And if you're mostly just grinding or you're tankier class, then Zarka statue. So either way, these are what they look like. This is what I use. For the most part, just AP. If you're PvPing, the bonus stat is nice, but not necessarily recommended. And then, yeah, we talked about that and why it's why buying these scrolls are bad value, and they're just one of those things that if you forgot to do it in town before you went to grinding and you're like, oh, I'm already to my grind spot and I forgot to do it, this is the only reason why you're losing money. It is what it is, but I'm glad these are in the game. If they were like 15-20 mil each, I think that would be better value, but as long as people are still buying these at almost 40, you just know that you're literally losing money, and we proved it to you just now. So anyway, it's not a big deal. It's just one of those things. If you want to save money, there's an option. Okay, so the next things we're going to talk about are elixirs and potions and everything. We'll talk about that. So remember, this is going to be a lot easier to explain than it was before. In 2025, what you do is buy a harmony draft. You buy these or make them yourself. They're essentially the equivalent of using a full blue elixir rotation, and depending on where you grind, you buy the species you want. Let me show you what it looked like before we had harmonies. Where is it? You see all these blue elixirs, and this is like unironically what I would use. All of these, you have to have all of these and set it to use on your fairy. So nowadays in 2025, it's not that big a deal. You just pop these, and these are equivalent of like 14 blue ones. So yeah, just buy this one, and then you can use one perfume. So the difference between Perfume of Courage and Deep Sea is kind of like the equivalent of the Simple and Cron, or Simple Cron and Exquisite Cron. If you are over capped on AP, you want more special damage. So that's back, down, air, you know, all that stuff. 10% is really nice. It gives you a little bit less AP and a little bit less HP, but higher special damage. So once again, as we talked about, green number generally means you use you're overcapped, and you would probably use Perfume of Deep Sea. And if you are under the cap, so like let me find a spot that I know I don't hit. So like one of these with them full buff. Red number means you use perfume because it gives more AP, and generally the spot is harder. Red number, perfume. Green number, Deep Sea. Easy. Okay. The next thing we want to talk about is if you are on the lower end side of everything and you don't feel like popping, you know, 100 mil worth of harmonies an hour and all this stuff. Frenzy drafts of corruption. These are also very good. These are what they look like. Essentially, it's these. These are like the budget options if you're on lower end grind spots. I don't think they're bad. You're just not getting maximum value out of all your stats with it. So you can get these and Frenzy of Corruption. So what's the difference between this 38 AP against monsters and 35? So I would always buy the this one. This +5. More is more. It is what it is. So yeah, these are the ones you could use. You could combine your regular ones that last 15 minutes and turn them into hour potions. Simply by where is it? Holy, I need to clean my inventory. Dude, where is it? Did I use them all actually? Did I put in Heidel? Either way, it's those magical elixir thingies. Let me see if I can just find it. Yeah, the magical elixirs. You combine the 15-minute ones, 2 of them, with the magical elixir, and you turn it into an hour potion. So, like, most people grind in hour-long period blocks anyway, so it's better to do it. Yeah, these are the budget options. These are your standard, expensive, go all out, big damage, big loot kind of one. And so yeah, those are the elixirs that we use. Here's how I set it up on my grinding. So this one is a little bit different based on where I'm grinding. Harmony, perfume, and then all your extra buffs. Okay, so let's talk about item loot. So level 1 and level 2. Depending on how many loot scrolls you have, I personally have a lot more. I've just been playing this game longer than most people have, so I have more. But your ideal goal is to get to 300. If you are trying extra hard, you go in Arsha for 350, 400 for Castle and Arsha, but 300 for your average person, right? So your item drop rate turned on would be your yellow number right here in the middle of the screen. So mine's 85.5 when I'm not buffed or anything. If you turn this on to a level 1 or a level 2, you get 185, or like you basically increase the number because you're turning on the loot scroll. So how do you get more? On your average day, what you're going to want to do is pop the tent buff, which, you know, from 10 mil to 50 mil gives 10% all the way to 50. I would say for most people, just do the 50%. I know like 50 mil is a lot, and well, it's not a lot, but it's like when you're looking at the number, it looks like a lot. But trust me when I say higher drop loot, always good, no matter where you're grinding. So it's important to actually pop this one. So 50% over here from that one. And then what other things could you use? One thing that you could get in game are those traditional tea snacks and assorted, you know, things. These give 50 to 100%. I would say they're kind of hard to get, but here's what you do. In your morning light, you set these up, and then when you free refresh it, every now and then, sometimes you get these. So you can set these and then refresh it. I'd never recommend spending pearls on the refresh. You just hope to get it every now and then, and sometimes you do get it. Aside from that, any other event things going on? So like, you know, now that you can store these and they no longer have an expire limit, anything with item drop rate. So these are kind of given out like candy these days, and if you don't use them, that's always good. So between 30 to an extra 100% drop rate is always good. So that one gives you another 100 up to 100, and then tent buff is another 50, so like up to 150, and then, you know, your loot scroll for another 50 to 100 drop amount, and then drop rate is always 100 flat. The difference between drop rate and then drop amount, I know it's confusing to some people. Drop rate means like the rarity of items, and then drop amount is how much trash loot you get. So like drop rate is higher chance of getting that treasure item. Drop amount is more trash loot per hour. So that, if that makes sense. If you have a lot of loot scrolls, just use level 2. If you are strictly budget and you are running out of loot scrolls, level 1 is not a bad option. Ideally, you just want to drop rate, but drop amount is just a bonus. So either way, this is 100 drop rate, just level 1 scroll at minimum, and then another 30 to 100 from event scrolls that they give out. So up to 200 here, and then tent buff is another 50 or up to 50. And then your default item drop rate is whatever it is. So that could reach 300%. And if you're going extra hard, there are these extra bonuses that they give from, you know, various events. So, you know, like these things, I know these are not something you have running all the time, but anything that gives extra drop rate is always nice to have. And these are just events. There's always an event. Chances are, you can get them fairly easily. There's also guild buffs that go on. Let me show you these guild buffs. Item drop rate, if you're not an officer, just ask someone to pop it. It's another 10%. And yeah, it's just a lot of buffs that stack up every now and then. You have, what is it? Blessing of Kamasylve, that's another 20. This usually overcaps. I don't think Blessing of Kamasylve is that important these days. I would say value pack, number 1 priority, Secret Book of Old Moon, 2nd priority, because you get to use your tent buff wherever. And then this 20% in energy recovery is always nice, but I would say it's like the least valuable of the 3. I wish they would just combine it all into one and just, you know, one set. So it's a lot easier quality of life, but it is what it is. Prolobis has got to make money. I am convinced this is value pack, and then these buffs are what make the game the most amount of money, more than costumes, to be honest. But who knows? None of us know. But that's about it. That's what I wanted to talk about. Here's how you set up your fairy and everything, just in case you're new. If you have infinite potions, you'll get this thing with Miraculous Chair. You set it, your infinite potions, and this is why I recommend putting it in your family inventory, because this will be permanent forever for all your characters. And so I'll set it to whatever number. You can have it on whatever. I think there was a reason why I kept mine at 98 instead of always use. I think it's because, let me see, HP. Unless they changed it a while ago, this used to be a thing where it would recover more if you were like CC'd, and that's why you would only use it at a certain point. But nowadays, if you kept yours on like 100% always use, I don't think it's really a big deal, to be honest. But aside from that, if you don't have a continuous care fairy at maxed, what you would do is you set up your food buff and then maybe a non-hour long potion to cycle through while you're doing a grinding. Simply because most people grind in 1 hour blocks. That's how buffs are set up in this game. It is what it is. This one, the Harmony, it takes 15 slots of your maximum 20. So if you don't have, a maxed one, what you do is you just put this on a hotbar and, you just drag your Harmony into a quick slot and then pop it every 15 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. So back in the day when we had to use all the blue elixirs, it was basically mandatory we have this. Nowadays, you don't. So hopefully this helped you. I thought it was pretty important to talk about all this, how to get max drop rate and best buffs to use, and hopefully that helps you. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.